Hi, everybody. Thanks to all of you for joining us today for part 2 of the V10 Summary Dashboards user group. Justin's traveling in the US today, so Chris is going to be running the show on his own. As usual, there will be 2 parts to the session. Chris will review the widgets that weren't covered in our June presentation, and then there'll be time for questions and answers. Raise your hand by pressing the hand button and we can unmute you, or you can type your questions in the chat. For those of you who've already upgraded to version 10, feel free also to pass on any comments or feedback you have. We'd appreciate it. Now it's over to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so today's topic, let's just start there. So last session we covered a great deal of the summary widgets, or excuse me, the summary dashboard widgets. So this is part 2. For those that want to catch up on part 1 and any widgets that we did not, or that we've already previously covered, those are actually on a video online already. I can point you to there if you have questions about those. Probably should have had it already up and running, but that's fine. So today we're going to cover certain ones. Now, some of these are going to be use case in certain specifics. That's why they were kind of left off to the side of the original one. So affected services, custom widget, HTML, web page, event summary, object properties, and SQL widget. Those are all, the widgets we're going to cover today. Pretty much most of those are going to be kind of certain scenario specific, except for maybe the HTML and the SQL widget, which I do plan on covering a little bit more in depth of some of the things you can do. Like we said, feel free to ask questions during it. We'll have a question and answer period, and then we'll go into, as some of you have gotten emails about the alert management piece, we'll kind of go into the alert management piece, explain a little bit what it is, and kind of go from there. I won't be able to answer any kind of sales questions on the alert management piece, so if you want to know whether you're allowed to have it, whether you can get it, what it takes to get it, things of that nature, because some people do get it, then please, you can contact sales. We'll kind of go from there. And then we'll go through a question and answer period. So off to the lab, AKA off to the browser. All right, so let me get this up and running. All right, so I'm going to do a quick review so everyone understands certain things of the way V10 works. This is the home page. The home page is now a summary dashboard, which means that a lot of these things you will be able to customize and configure yourself. Key things that I'm actually going to be covering today is actually going to be part of this HTML widget and this SQL widget. Most of the other things we pretty much have already covered at some point in time. But just as a quick review, so everyone can know those things, if you want to edit this one, it is a summary dashboard. So all you have to do is simply go to Home, Summary Dashboard, and then into Homepage again. You'll notice now I actually have a lock up here, so you can unlock it and start to edit. Now, a couple key things that have come up since I started doing the installs, the upgrade for V10. We naturally assume that you guys are going to edit the homepage. Some of this information may not work for all users. As I was starting to point out, this is SCOM health, this is SQL Server health, and this is web server health. If you have people that don't have access to those groups, they may actually have a small API error or something along those lines. So we do imagine that you will go ahead and edit these. So just because it's displayed on this page doesn't necessarily mean your users are all going to see the information. So feel free to remove things, edit things, and go from there. Like the HTML widget, we expect you'll actually customize, put your own company logo, things of that nature. Yeah, so that's how you get to the home page. To create a new dashboard, it's going to be Summary Dashboards, Create New Dashboard. Any of your old existing version 8 dashboards still exist. They're under the Legacy Dashboard section. We wanted to make sure we didn't touch those so that way they, your links or anything you have there is all there. You have the time to put in new dashboards in place for those people, and then allow them to start using the new format of the dashboards. So I'm going to do things a little different this time than I did last time. Last time I actually started kind of with a blank canvas and started adding the dashboards. In an efforts of time, I'm going to go ahead and I've already added the dashboards or the widgets that I'm going to cover this go around. With the exception of the HTML and the SQL one, I'll actually start to play with those and edit those. So I'm in my dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and click on edit so I can toggle and edit the dashboard itself. If I needed to add a new one, I can always add a new widget down here, but I've already added the ones that I needed to deal with, so I'm going to start configuring them. So there's a configure button. This is the affected services widget. For the most part, title, no results message, the different views that may occur in here, like entity state or heat map, you do have those abilities to change the views, but the default view is what everyone sees to start with. So the affected service widget has one basic purpose. It's basically you select an object, and then we'll tell you if there's any services that object is in, Windows services or excuse me, live map services. It's one basic function. It's actually used in other parts, but we went ahead and made it available for you to have if you need it. So it's pretty simple to configure. There's not much else to it. The only real, whether you want if you have multiple services for this one particular object, whether you want those listed alphabetically or, by health state. That's really the only other things that configure or consider besides the class and the object itself. So if I'm done, just click update and it's over with. Custom dashboards. This one is pretty much the general tab, title, whether you want it to refresh, how often you want it to refresh, and then if you want that available. Data is going to be the dashboard itself. Now there's one key difference here. Anyone that dealt with version 8 that wanted to show the Bing maps on a summary dashboard found out that they had to use the Webpage widget, and we kind of had to link it in. The Bing maps wouldn't naturally go directly into the custom dashboard widget. Well, this is different. We'll actually go ahead and add it in there. So we've updated that and now can show a Bing map. One thing I will tell you is that preview pane off to the side, if you selected a Bing map, generally just says no available because it doesn't see it right away. But if you select other things, then you can generally see the dashboard that you're selecting. Event summary. Event summary is a lot like our alert summary, where we're listing out objects. In this case, it's really just the object name, whether you want to show a path or not. You can select a class, or you can select a group, or you can select both. So in this case, I just said, hey, grab me the all Windows computers group, and it's giving me the total number of events per object. In this case, I don't really have any events going on for these objects, but it will give you a number, and then you can click on the object and drill into the object details and see a little bit more information. Sometimes this is repetitive information, especially if you have alerts. Alerts will actually events too, so may show a duplication there, but at least you can see the total number of events per object. Okay, HTML. So now let's actually do some playing. So far, I've just been kind of explaining things and not really doing much. So HTML widget. I've already added, this hey simple message on here. I'm going to go into configuration. There's really just a general, the same basic stuff there, and then this is the exact format for the no results message, by the way. So if you on any of the pages you see that no results message and you come back and want to test for, only want to see warning and critical and everything's healthy, then you can put in that everything's healthy or however you want to do it. So it's pretty much a little bit of a, WYSIWYG type of editor at first, or at least typing in, you can see it. I can also not exactly WYSIWYG, but close enough. I can insert an image. So in this case, you can go find a source, or as I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to go grab an URL and add that URL in here. So this one happens to be a weather radar, just so you can see where I was grabbing it from. As I add on or click anywhere else, you can start to see the dimensions of the actual image that I'm adding in, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, this is the same size that would happen if I try to add this into a straight up Webpage widget, which is not very easy to do anything with, because if I'm in Dallas or if I'm in New York, well, then I can't really see anything. So the map is actually bigger than what I want to deal with. So this is where it's nice to come in here and actually go back to the image itself and allow myself to change the object size, and now we can make sure that it uses its same proportions. This is also nice where you actually can allow the HTML page to do a refresh every couple minutes, especially if you want to add something like a weather radar image that you found on a site or something like that. So now when I update it, you can actually see it's actually in my image the way I need it, or at least a lot better formatted. So you have the ability to do other things. So if I want to, I can change the font size. I can bold it out. I can change my font color. Maybe I want to change my font color to blue. Maybe I want to take that same thing and actually center align everything. Then I can do that. Now, one really cool part about this is looking at the source code. So if I open this up, you actually get the HTML code itself. You are free to go ahead and edit this. I've learned through trial and error that some things work really well and some things don't. Just adding certain font size tags don't always work. However, if I come in here and use something like this, then I can actually create a div tag and turn around and actually use a font size and things of that nature in here. Here, I can add this in, and now I've added another section to this. Feel free to play around with this. Here's my words of caution. Obviously, it's a basic HTML editor. You can add and play with it to your heart's content. We've had some people that have added radial buttons. One of our clients had an idea of using it to show all of their virtual machines, but then also create a page off the side to request new virtual machines. I have no clue if he was successful in that endeavor or not. It was just a way to show information, but then also request new information. Like I said, don't know if he was successful or not. The only word of caution I got from the developers has to do with if you want to do any kind of advanced Java scripting. Obviously, we use Java to deal with the Angular side of the house on this thing, so just be careful where you're going there. If you're doing a lot, it may cause other issues and cause the site to crash, and the first thing we're going to say is, hey, remove the Java scripting. So that's just my only word of caution there. So they just haven't done a lot of advanced testing on that phase. All right, so that was HTML. On to the other two things before I get on to SQL. Object properties. This is pretty simple. Basically, it's class and then the object, whatever object you're looking for, and then deciding which property values you want to see. So you can have the listing of all the property values and just tag which ones you want, and now you can actually see a listing of those property values. It's really a single use case scenario if you're trying to create a dashboard for a set, a limited number of objects, and you want to place those property values directly on the page itself. Webpage Widget, it's another pretty simple on here as far as adding the URL of what you want to add, how often you want it to refresh. Like I said, you could add a title. Couple things on this, the same kind of rules apply as previously. It's obviously being put into an iframe. You have to make sure that you like to have it, that page likes to be in an iframe. If it doesn't like to be in an iframe, you'll actually get an iframe error message saying, hey, I don't like to be in an iframe. If the site is external and it gives you that problem, there's nothing that we can do about that because it's actually controlled by the remote site that actually has the web page. If it's an internal application, there are KB articles out on the web that actually talk about changing the web config file and allowing certain things to be in iframes. Basically, you're kind of opening up. It's a safety precaution that some developers have put in place to not allow an iframe. So it is something that in some cases you can open up. I have found for some people that wanted to put like a SolarWinds dashboard or something like that has not worked in the past, that there is a way to open it up. I've never tested it myself to truly find out, but there are articles out there to do that. So I figured I'd go ahead and mention that as we go through. Now, so that's most of the widgets except for SQL. So let's get on to SQL. That's probably where I'm going to get more questions or anything else. I'll put myself into edit mode. For the most part, the SQL query or SQL widget follows the same kind of thing as PowerShell did. There's a general tab where you can give it a title, no results message. You can select the views. Obviously there's a lot more here. I purposely left these in here, and I'll show you why here in a second, but for the most part, I'm really only showing you the grid. And then data. Now data, you can select data warehouse, operations manager, database. It's in version 8, we only really showed the data warehouse as an easy link. However, you can go to SQL and you can go grab from any SQL source as long as we can read it. Keynote on Windows authentication. If you're using Windows authentication, it's going to try to connect as the app pool user. That app pool user must have a minimum of like DB data reader access to read whatever you're trying to show here. The query itself, we've added to some, the IntelliSense and the colored options in here, so it's a lot easier to read than before. Before it was just all black and white text. When it comes to the grid view, there's really not much you have to do to it. Anything that would show a table in any other query that you'd run would be perfectly fine. Here, it's a little different. So well, excuse me, I'm sorry, I misplaced that. Anything that shows in a table will show up here without any other formatting. So you're perfectly fine there. If you want other types of views, then there is certain formatting that we have to follow. So in the case of a bullet graph, then we need a title, a target, an actual, and a maximum. A pie chart, I just need things returned as a title and a value. I'll actually cover this one. I'll actually cover the entity state, the heat map, because those are actually identical. And I'll cover a little bit of the bar chart. So we'll move on to those here next. Heat map. Let me pull this up. I'll go. Don't need to re-explain everything there. I can go directly to the data itself. You can see here that what I'm doing based on what's required is I have to return an ID, which usually is going to be the GUID of the objects themselves. A display name, a class is available, is maintenance in health state, because we're really just kind of reusing the health state widget in order to show this data this one way. So here I basically grabbed the base managed entity ID, and I'm sharing it as the ID. I'm doing a case statement to figure out exactly what the health state is, and then I'm saving that as health state. Is available, is in maintenance mode. Now here's something a little different, is since I already know that in this case I'm grabbing all computer objects, I just went in and said, hey, it's Windows Computer as my class. That actually gives you a little bit of flexibility. So if you want to go grab something like the IP address or something else and place those values in as a class, that actually gives you kind of a second option down here that you can use as a tagline for anything else. The ID, now that's another thing. If I'm using the GUID from the base managed entity from SCOM, that's great. Then that means that when I click on any one of these, it'll actually drill down into the Object Explorer. However, if you're grabbing something from another source and want to place those in there, then obviously those managed entity IDs won't exist. So you can really use any ID. We just have to have something labeled an ID. I just kind of wanted to make sure you understood that part. It's just whether we'll actually have a drill down effect that works or not that will determine that ID functionality. Okay, so pie chart. Let's kind of look at the pie chart and the way that it's queried. Here it's simple. I almost use the exact same thing as before. I'm looking at health states, except for this time I'm kind of doing a count of those health states. Here I'm basically saying, look, I want the one value as title. Actually, I'm doing a value and then T value as the title. And I'm grouping those together in order to turn around and come up with, a count of the health states. By the way, this example is directly in I think the handouts are on the GoToWebinar. There's a SQL query handout PDF file that's in there. Now there's a trick to the bar graph one. Bar graph, the hard part about bar graphs is that you have to have a key, which is obviously going to be, alerts per day, events per day, state changes per day, something like that. An X, which is going to be time. and a Y value, which is obviously the value that goes up, basically. In the case of this one, when I look at the query itself, this one is a combination of Kevin Holman's SQL queries, meaning that we put them together all together and try to group them in order to display this over the last 7 days. The biggest change here is that the time has to be in that kind of epoch JavaScript format. So there is a little bit of a conversion that goes on in order to have that to work. Another key note about this is that if I want to look that over 7 days, yeah, that's great. Then yes, I need to do some kind of conversion in order for that to work. However, you could also, if you want something that has a singular day, a singular value, like I only care about today's values, you could, pre-format the time as a set value and just leave it at that. It doesn't necessarily have to change. You don't have to necessarily query that every day, or maybe you just query what today's day is and then do a conversion of that, something along those lines, because we will actually show the date. So that may be an issue for you there. So in this case, it's just doing kind of the same thing before, where we're doing counts for state changes per day. We're doing counts on events per day, still doing the conversion, and then, combining that with, alerts per day, and then, returning those values for this particular one. This example is going to be on everybody's homepage. When you first install, this is on the homepage. So if you want to see this exact thing, all you have to do is go to the homepage and then turn around and put it at edit mode to copy this one. I just went ahead and copied it into here since I was doing some of the testing here. All right, so that's pretty much what I was going to cover when it comes to SQL. So next I'll cover alert management. So alert management, as everyone can figure, if we've already talked about Civision IQ at one time, is basically Civision IQ, except for in some cases people get it, some people don't. Like I said, you can talk to your sales manager to find out what you have, whether it's purchased, whether it needs to be purchased, things of that nature. We have different connectors that go to different objects or different integrations. I'm going to actually pull up the integrations page real quick. Now here's a list of current and future integrations. Right now, as part of what we're doing for some people is actually they get the operations manager connector. Other connectors take money in order to get them. It's part of a subscription cost, but it does allow you to turn around and bring in not only SCOM objects and like SolarWinds or Nagios, or maybe pulling in like Amazon Web Services or Azure or something like that, and bringing them all together into one to not only see alerts, do queries on those alerts, or do queries for different objects, health states, and then actually group those into boards. So that's kind of the quick version of that. So I'm going to kind of show you what it is. That's also the reason why in some cases when we're asking for a key, a license key, we need a different server for this to actually be installed on. This not something we want installed on a management server. It needs its own database. We actually use two databases, one SQL, and the other one is technically not a database. It's Elasticsearch, which is actually a search engine. But it does make us and allow us to make very, very fast queries to pull in information and data and search and things of that nature. So from its default page, the home page, you actually have any of the computer objects. You can see in this case, I have PRTG, SCOM. I'm actually connecting it to vCenter. SolarWinds, I can look up objects. I can look at the property values of the objects, the raw properties. I can actually go back to the source. So in this case, it's SCOM. I'll go back to the Object Explorer and Live Maps. Or if I was looking at SolarWinds, I would go back to Orion, things of that nature. I can also look at the object itself, how many alerts are on that object, incidents for that object, and if they're in any boards. And I'll kind of explain boards here in a moment. So you have this across computers, alerts, incidents. By the way, groups and services are going to be the groups from the different monitoring systems. In the case of SCOM, it's going to be the SCOM groups, or could be live map services. So you can see like the order entry service that we show just about every single time on anything else. If I go into more properties, I can look at the object members. You can see where the end user application and infrastructure. I can actually draw it out. I can also go into and find any of those objects that are red. kind of expand things out instantly. This is kind of an auto draw diagram of this particular service. I can look at the alerts for those objects. Now, anywhere you find alerts, I did this in the last session. Anywhere you see alerts, you can, including here, I can actually highlight by holding down the shift key and targeting multiple alerts at the same time. I can go through and close out all of those alerts at once. I can also link those to an ITSM, whether it be like ServiceNow or Ivanti. So it does give you the ability to kind of link them and group them as one single incident instead of hand typing or transferring noise from one end to the other end. Then you have that ability. Now you can also do searches. So if I do star, SQL star, then I could search across everything for SQL. That includes in alerts. You'll notice that certain things are tagged. We always look for not only the object, but then we'll also look at any of the property values. I just assumed it was going to be, where is the SQL one in this one? Sure, I grabbed one and I'm trying to figure out where it came from. Usually I get a highlight of where the SQL is. Okay, so agent, maybe it's targeting. Oh, anyway. So you can look across multiple platforms on your searches, your alerts. You can actually save searches. So in this case, I did something like all critical computers or, all critical alerts in the last 24 hours. If I click on this, it'll automatically put that search in here. I can see those alerts. And now I have the option to say, hey, you know what? These are all part of the same issue, and I can turn around and tag them and either close them out or link them to an incident or something along those lines. Now you can also take objects like computers or components and highlight those components and actually, so let's say these are all part of one system, I can actually pin those to a board. Basically, it's a group within IQ. So if I go to the board section, then you can see the boards. I can see a heat map of the objects below it. You can have boards within boards. So it is a way of saying, hey, application X, but then maybe I group a board that has, all of the SCOM objects, all of the VMware objects, all of the SolarWinds objects, you could combine things together, or maybe I do it another way, and then here's my end user, here's my application, here's my networking, here's my computers. So it's a little bit more of a flexible way of putting a group together versus just a board or a group within SCOM, or even a service within SCOM, because it's a lot more flexible of what you can combine and add together at that point. Pretty much the limit is up to you on how often and how much data you want to put in here. Now we show it as a heat map, but you also have a couple other options like, the total number of alerts in this particular board, or the number of incidents in this board, or, the uptime, which is going to be over the last 7 days. If I click on any one of these, I can drill into it and see those objects. I can also see the number of alerts that are currently going on for that board, or any incidents that are created off this one, which leads me to this. There is a little bit of incident automation in here. So I have a set of servers in here. If I want to, I can actually create an incident automatically if any one of these servers actually goes into a critical state. So in this case, I'm creating an incident in ServiceNow, giving it a number, short description, who it's for, and the nice part about any time we do create an incident in like ServiceNow or Ivanti, I think Sherwell is actually going to be the next one coming down the pipe. It will turn around and close out the incident or close out the alerts whenever I close out the incident. So it goes back into the different monitoring systems and does that. Now we do this incident automation not only on a board level, but then also on a search level. So you can actually create the same kind of incidents here, if I want to. Key thing, so about the incident automation, if a incident occurs on a board and creates an incident, and another alert or something comes in that is part of that board, we will append that incident with the same information. So that way we're not creating like a dozen incidents because you had, a dozen alerts to come through. That's not usually helpful, we find, because that way we're trying to reduce some noise, not increase it in that case. So this is the alert management piece as a whole, of what it can do, what it's currently capable of. I figure, I guess the one other thing I should show is in the integrations piece, so you can kind of see what is current at this point. I do know that the next release, they're going to add up What's Up Gold into this. So, all right, that is those pieces. So in summary, I covered a bunch of widgets, different ones, kind of highlighted more the HTML and the SQL widget, and then I also covered the alert management piece. So that will lead me to our next one, which we do plan to do on August 30th. We have a few things in mind. We haven't settled on any one topic. So if you have any suggestions, we'll take suggestions. You can either, hey, email support, email Andrea. We actually have a forum up and running, and I meant to have that up. I think if you go to civision.com and go into the resources, there's a link in there to get to a forum, so you can add information or ask questions that way, or you can just send the email to support. Either way. But if nobody has any other questions, then I think that will end the day. Okay. I want to thank everyone for showing up. Like I said, if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to email us, and we'll kind of go from there. Thank you very much. Have a good day.